My Journey with Technology. Hi, this is Jennifer Genio, and I am with EDUC 6223 through Southeastern University's doctoral program. Hi, I presently teach English 1 at a private Christian school in Clearwater, Florida. Our school is aggressively pursuing technology development, so as a result, I've really enjoyed this book by Carr about The Shallows. Faculty is encouraged at my school to integrate technology in the classroom across the curriculum. We get regular training and support and receive goals for a base level of tech integration in our lessons. All students are required to have a laptop and use it regularly throughout the day. We as a faculty and school use RenWeb and Moodle primarily, both as a school and individual instructional units. This is very different from my experience as a student. Raised in the 1970s, my dad was a computer science professor at a university in the Northeast. I recall going with him to campus and visiting the computer lab where rows of large boxy machines, the computer, whirred and buzzed. The best thing about going to my dad's computer lab, I generally got to bring home a stack of the long computer paper that was fed into the machines to print out coding. I used it for drawing paper. Often, my dad would bring home a computer to work on as a perk of his position. I remember playing a very simplistic hangman-style game. The screen was a flat black display with greenish-white type, stark and basic compared to the displays of today. Even as a daughter of a computer science professor, however, we never had a home computer until many years later. I attended a public high school that had a strong reputation for academics, although tech was not a memorable presence. During high school, I did not use a computer for learning and don't recall having access to one. Papers were completed by hand or by using a typewriter, preferably an electronic one with correction tape. Instruction in all my classes centered on chalkboards with only a few whiteboards. I do recall several teachers did use overhead projectors, but that was about the extent of any enhancements. When I attended college for my undergraduate degree in the late 80s, a computer class was a requirement. I do recall one of the required materials were floppy disks, and one of our graded assignments was to learn to format a floppy disk. From the standpoint of other classes, research was still done in a library using a card catalog, but certain databases were emerging as a potential support, such as LexisNexis. Computer knowledge remained mostly a separate entity and was not an enhancement of instruction or my experience as a student, particularly if you were not a computer science major. By the time I graduated, certain textbooks were providing a secondary resource with either a floppy disk or a CD-ROM. Usually this resource was related directly to a task needed in the class, such as analyzing statistical data for my Statistics for Non-Math Majors class. Ugh, I get a headache just thinking about it. When my husband and I began to have children, I settled into my role as a mother and knew that I would eventually return to pursue more education. Tech couldn't have been farther from my mind. However, even then, the toys we brought our children moved from blocks and board books to include VTech interactive games and other such devices. I moved on to complete my graduate degrees in 2009 and 2012, and I believe I saw the biggest change in the way technology had affected learning. Being home with young children for several years and out of the circle of tech development allowed me to see the great leaps of progress and integration that technology experienced in the field of education in just a short amount of time. As time has passed, I feel that technology has not merely crept into my life, but marched in decisively. As I recall my childhood and early season of education, I can see individual milestones, as I had mentioned, but beginning in the early to mid-90s and beyond, tech seems to have merged much more quickly into my life, professional, personal, and academic. I think that I've kind of grown up with my own children with respect to technology as they were growing up in a much more tech-oriented culture than I did. Time is of the essence. To stay involved in their learning meant to stay current with technology that was being used as students and learn it with them so I could support them where needed. Being in the field of ministry and education, I also began to receive access and education to technology that has helped me shape my use in all areas of my life. My learning has certainly changed as a result of technology, but has my ability to read, as Carr discussed in his book The Shallows, has that changed as well? If brains differ between literate and illiterate, wouldn't it seem possible for brains to differ between technologically literate and technologically illiterate? As Carr discusses, I do believe my learning has been changed by technology's influence, but I also think that it's a change that stems from the season of life and cultural influence as well. I'm a busy mom, teacher, wife, ministry servant, friend, daughter, always looking for ways to make my time more efficient. Technology has done this in many ways, and it's not just an a la carte type mentality. as tech influence floods my life from communication to the classroom, from access to resources to manage my home, my bank account, enhance my classroom for my learners, and lesson planning. It helps me communicate with people in all areas of my life, place my children's lunch orders, and ultimately engage in the virtual classroom of this doctoral program. I must ask the question, do I possess a shorter attention span because of technology or the demands of life itself? Have I actually replaced the time that I use that tech was supposed to give me by adding more activities? Or is this an inescapable reality of my season of life and all the parts of my existence that merge each day and require my engagement? As someone who enjoys learning, I do see myself that I am more willing to jump on the internet to research anything from the best price on sneakers for my son to journal articles to help me write a research paper. Have a question we can't answer? Just Google it. I feel that much of my potentially shorter attention span comes from the sheer availability of information and my enjoyment of learning new things. I gladly chase information using my convenient smartphone, swiping away in and out of my face-to-face conversations. I found that I need to be careful not to check out of daily life with those around me, under the self-deception that I'm actually being more productive for their benefit. Professionally, as I seek to be a teacher of excellence, a strong grasp of technology is critical for success, not only for me, but ultimately for my students, as they are being equipped to learn and develop in the future. Personally, my outlook is to use technology to enhance my life's tasks, but not to the extent of losing the relationship with those around me.